Imagine building an empire from scratch, brick by brick, sacrifice after sacrifice, only to realize that the people you trusted most were the very ones planning your downfall. But what if your salvation came not from powerful allies, but from the smallest, quietest voice you almost didn't hear? This is not just a story about betrayal. It's about courage where you least expect it. Stay with us, because by the end of this story, you might just rethink where true strength really comes from. Before we dive in, if you love stories that reveal the truth behind success, betrayal, and unexpected heroes, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Ethan Caldwell was not the kind of man who missed details. Every brick of Caldwell construction, every signature on every contract, it all bore the weight of his precision. His sharp mind had built an empire, brick by brick, dollar by dollar. But that morning, something slipped past even his relentless gaze. It was supposed to be a normal day. Meetings, contracts, calls. But then, in the polished reflection of his office window, he noticed movement. Small feet. Soft steps. A little girl. She couldn't have been more than 8. Wavy dark hair falling messily over her shoulders, worn sneakers with frayed laces, wide brown eyes filled with both fear and quiet defiance. She clutched something in her small hand, a device, carefully wrapped in an old handkerchief. Without speaking, she walked to the edge of his massive oak desk, her tiny hand trembling slightly as she extended the package. Ethan, confused but strangely intrigued, leaned forward and took it gently from her grasp. Unwrapping the cloth, he froze. It wasn't a toy, as he first assumed. It was a miniature camera, expertly hidden in what looked like a simple office air freshener. His breath caught in his throat. Someone had been spying on him, in his private office, right under his nose. Ethan's heart pounded, but he kept his expression neutral, glancing down at the little girl again. She said nothing, just lifted her chin with a subtle bravery that didn't fit her fragile frame. "Who gave you this?" he finally whispered. She hesitated. "It's been there, for a while," she murmured. "I heard people talking. My mom cleans here at night. I saw someone hiding it." Shock gave way to calculation. Someone in his inner circle. Someone with access. Someone close. The little girl's gaze didn't waver. "They said bad things about you. My mom told me not to say anything. But I thought you should know." For the first time in years, Ethan felt the ground beneath him shift. This wasn't just corporate espionage. This was betrayal. Treason. The little girl shifted nervously, stepping back as if expecting to be scolded, or worse, ignored. But Ethan slowly stood up, his 6-foot frame towering but not threatening. "What's your name?" he asked, voice low but steady. "Mia," she whispered. A moment of stillness hung between them, thick with uncertainty. "Thank you, Mia," Ethan finally said, his voice filled with something rare for a man of his stature, sincerity. "You just saved something, bigger than you can imagine." Outside, the city buzzed on, unaware that in one towering office above the skyline, the first crack had appeared in a billion-dollar empire, and that its salvation had just arrived on tiny, determined feet. Ethan didn't know yet who had betrayed him. He didn't know how deep it went. But as he watched Mia disappear down the corridor, one thing became certain. He was going to find out. The truth revealed. The following days were filled with shadows. Ethan didn't return to his office. Instead, he worked behind the scenes, assembling a small team of people he trusted implicitly, or at least, those he thought he did. His tech division, led by Oliver Grant, began scouring every device in the building. What they found sent chills through Ethan's bones. Cameras. Microphones. Listening devices embedded inside smoke detectors. Desk ornaments, even the framed photo of his late father sitting on his bookshelf. But the worst revelation came from the footage itself. Night after night, the recording showed faces Ethan knew well, board members, senior executives, men and women he had mentored, promoted, shared dinners with. Whispers of offshore accounts. Secret handshakes. Conversations about the new buyers who were willing to pay millions for Caldwell Construction's upcoming patents. It was a conspiracy larger than Ethan could have imagined. They weren't just planning to sell secrets. They were preparing to dismantle the company from the inside, piece by piece, like termites in the walls of his legacy. One face kept appearing more than the others: Douglas Vance, Ethan's COO and his closest confidant for over a decade. It felt like a knife slowly twisting in his ribs each time Ethan saw Douglas smile on the screen, that same smile he'd seen across countless boardroom tables. But through all of this betrayal, one thread of light remained: Grace. Ethan first met Grace, Mia's mother, late one night when he returned unexpectedly to the building. She stood in the hallway outside his office, mop in hand, frozen with panic as she saw him. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I told Mia not to get involved. Please, don't be angry with her." But Ethan wasn't angry. He was curious. Who were they really? What made this small family risk everything by exposing something that could have destroyed them? Grace explained it all: how she'd overheard late-night meetings between executives, how she'd seen men tampering with Ethan's office, how Mia, clever and sharp-eyed, noticed the hidden devices first. They hadn't known what to do, only that it was wrong. "I've cleaned floors my whole life," Grace said quietly. "But I wasn't going to stand by and watch someone steal what you built. My father used to tell me, even the smallest candle can show the way in the darkest room." I guess that's what Mia wanted to be. Ethan stood silent for a long moment. "You both already are," he finally said. That night, Ethan made a decision. Grace was no longer going to be invisible. Neither was Mia. And as for the traitors in his midst, their days were numbered. He didn't just want revenge. He wanted justice, redemption and hope. Justice, however, didn't come in fiery revenge or scandalous headlines. Ethan was more strategic than that. He didn't want chaos, he wanted order. He wanted his empire clean, rebuilt stronger. Over the course of several weeks, Ethan worked tirelessly, operating behind the scenes like a silent architect reconstructing a shattered building. With the help of trusted legal counsel, he began compiling airtight evidence against the conspirators. Every transaction, every whispered conversation, every camera feed was catalogued and prepared. When the time was right, Ethan called an emergency board meeting. The traitors walked into the grand conference room at the top floor of Caldwell Tower like they owned the place, their fake smiles and expensive suits shielding rotted cores. Ethan didn't shout. He didn't pound the table. Instead, with the same calm intensity that built his fortune, he played the recordings on the giant screen mounted to the wall. One by one, the guilty faces paled. Douglas Vance tried to recover with excuses, slippery words, practiced charm. But Ethan cut him off cold with a single folder of damning evidence: bank transfers, signed agreements, damning confessions caught on audio. "I trusted you," Ethan said softly, his voice steady but razor-sharp. "And you sold me like I was nothing. But you forgot one thing." He leaned forward. "This company isn't just mine. It belongs to the people who built it, the ones who believed in it, people like Grace. Like Mia." Security entered the room. The betrayers were escorted out, silent, broken, their futures shredded in the same room they once thought they controlled. But for Ethan, the real triumph came afterward. He offered Grace a permanent, respected position within Caldwell Construction, head of facilities, with a full staff and benefits she never dreamed of having. But more than that, he gave her and Mia a new life. A scholarship fund in Mia's name. Access to the best schools. A future no longer shaped by poverty or silence. Standing at the window of his office weeks later, Ethan watched Mia playing with a small toy car in the lobby below, her laughter echoing faintly upward through the atrium. For the first time in a long time he smiled, not the sharp, calculated smile of a CEO winning a deal, but the honest, human smile of a man who had finally remembered what mattered most. Caldwell Construction would thrive again. Stronger. Cleaner. Not because of him, but because of the smallest candle in the darkest room. Mia. And Ethan Caldwell would never forget it. In the end, Ethan Caldwell didn't rebuild his empire with revenge or power plays. He rebuilt it with something far greater: integrity, courage, and the innocence of a child who dared to speak up when others chose silence. And Grace? She taught him that the strongest people are often the ones the world overlooks, the the ones cleaning up other people's messes in silence, but carrying more dignity than entire boardrooms combined. Sometimes, the light we need doesn't come from the top. It comes from the smallest candle, held by the bravest hands. If this story moved you, if it made you think differently about loyalty, power, or the quiet heroes around you, subscribe to this channel. Here, we tell the stories no one else dares to tell. Stories of truth, courage, and hope. And remember, the next hero could be closer than you think. Maybe it's you.